Welcome to Interesting Enough. He is Trey. I am Nolan. Thank you guys so much for joining us once again. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, thank you. We got a lot to get into today. Of course, we're on Apple, Spotify, YouTube. Almost forgot all the platforms, so check us out on there as well. We got a lot to get into. But Trey, man, what's going on? How you feeling?
Man, I'm feeling good, man. I'm really wanting to get into this first topic of ours because, I don't know how I feel about some of the decisions made, but I'm gonna let you introduce that.
Yeah. We definitely got to get into this. We definitely got to. But if you're keeping track, we're gonna get into the NBA stuff as it stands right now. Of course, the series is 3-1, so we'll get into that. Of course, in a couple of days we'll have the finals preview for as well. So we got some basketball stuff to get into. So stay tuned for that. But first, we got to talk about what everyone's been talking about on social media in regards to music, and that's the Apple Music top 100 albums of all time. So we're not going to sit up here and read the entire list for you guys. I would encourage you, if you're listening, pull it up as we talk about it because we're going to be referencing this list a lot. Let's start by saying, one, these lists are designed to get us riled up. So I'm personally not going to take too much of the debate, although I do have some issues with said things on the list. Now, to clarify a couple things before we start, the list is the top 100 best albums. So that is not just hip hop. That is not just R&B, which is, I know, what we seem to majority. We That's what we talk about mostly on the podcast, probably, right, Trey? So it's
Yeah,
not
yeah. Hip hop probably number one, and R&B
is a distant second. Yeah. So
yeah,
it's
this.
top 100 albums. Yeah. So period. So keep that in mind when we're going to discuss some of the things that we felt that should have been on here. We're probably going to be jaded. And then also, I was listening to Ebro, Trey, and some of the other people. They were saying that the people that they got to vote on this are of all ages. So they got people like under 30 and stuff like that. And of course, the older generation. You got of various singer songwriters. Pharrell was a part of it. Stuff like that. So they try to make it as diverse as possible. So I say all that to say, keep that in mind when we're going through the list. But I have one huge thing that is an issue with me, but I'm gonna just throw it to you, Trey, first, because maybe we're going on the same page. Whether it's to the top of the list or the bottom, just give me maybe one or two things that stand out to you. Maybe egregious omission,
Yep.
something. Okay, yeah, I was gonna say that's probably the biggest thing. But let's go from there, and then we could just kind of go in whatever direction.
Okay, it's easy for me. And let me say this. I really do appreciate what Lauryn Hill did with her album, The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. It
That
might be the
yeah.
greatest hip hop album of all time, and I think that's easy to say if it's the number one rated album of all time according to Apple's list. But the idea that it's better than Thriller, can we just talk about how much Thriller sold, the cultural impact that album had?
55 million in the first year.
I mean, like,
55 million
I don't
records in the first
understand
year.
how we think, like, like you said, 55 million in the first year. It is the best selling album of all time. It put Michael Jackson on another stratosphere. It's the reason we all know him. It's the reason he was so iconic. It's the reason that he was able to perform in the Super Bowl. Like, I just don't understand. Maybe it's just because it's a little bit older than the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. And the other thing that Lauryn Hill's album has going forward is that the dominant genre of music at this point in time is hip hop, and that's a hip hop album. Whereas Michael Jackson, that's I guess you would consider that more pop. And that's just, it's not the dominant form of music now. So maybe that kind of helps. And I also think again that we're talking about that just been a little bit older. Maybe the people that were voting on this, they probably wouldn't necessarily vote for Thriller, but they probably grew up listening to Lauryn Hill. So I could see how that happened, but I just don't agree with it. And to be quite frank, I don't really consider myself biased because, you know, when Lauryn Hill's album came out, I might have been 4 years old. So it wasn't like I was just, listening to it. I do remember hearing songs on the radio, but it wasn't like I was just seeking it out. And then when Thriller came out, I wasn't even thought of. So like I don't think I'm too biased when I say this. I just don't understand this.
Okay, so I think I have a unique perspective, and what I mean by that is bias when it comes to those two albums, and I'll tell you why. So, for those who don't know, Michael Jackson is probably my favorite artist of all time. Just period. Period. Like my favorite artist. I think when we did the fantasy draft tray of like artists that I would want the album, I think I picked Mike. Like Mike is the guy for me, right? Um,
Hmm.
on the opposite of that, The Miseducation of Lauren Hill is one of my favorite albums of all time. And when I say favorite, this isn't like a top 10 album, top five. This is like top two or three albums. You know, if some people ask you the question, if you're stranded on an island, you know, what album would you pick? That's one of the albums, and that's no questions asked. So like, I uniquely listen to both of these a bunch, and they're still regularly in my rotation. That being said, Thriller's got to be number one. Like you're 100% right, Trey. The impact Thriller had alone on music and how music was, you know, consumed and how big music can make you a star. Nothing compares to the Michael Jackson thing. And by the way, Trey, what you didn't even mention is how about the people waiting around for the Thriller video, which is still probably the biggest video of music ever created. Like just that
Everybody knows that video. I'm talking about kids.
right. Like we're gonna see that every Halloween. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like that video alone is just like takes it over the top. Now, the Miseducation of Lauren Hill, here's why I think they may have put it number one. You mentioned the younger generation. Also, I think it may be important for them, and I heard this point being made. It's cool to like celebrate the number one person. I know Michael Jackson's unfortunately not alive, so if you were to vote on number one, they can't go out like with Lauren Hill. They actually had a dinner with her. They gave her an award, so I think that may be a part of it too. If you were just like breaking down, and I think Lauren Hill, I'm gonna be real. As much as I love that album, and like I've said, one of my favorite albums ever, she almost becomes like almost a folklore in a way because that was her only album. You know what I'm saying? So like we didn't get anything else from her. I mean, obviously she had the Fugees joints, but I'm saying like individually, that is her only album. We know, for those who don't know, you know, you can Google why she left the music industry, you know, yada yada yada. But because of that, I think that makes her body of work almost more iconic because we don't even have anything to compare it to. She's literally a one hit. I don't want to call her a one hit wonder, but a one album wonder that is a masterpiece. Like that is an absolute classic. It's almost like, you know, if a basketball player played 1 year, he won the Rookie of the Year, the MVP, the Defensive Player of the Year, and won the championship, and then retired. You know what I mean? Like you can't say he's the greatest artist ever, but he almost always has to be in some sort of discussion because you're like, hey, I don't have a big body of work, but the one thing I do have is this, and this stands alone and stands up with anybody's other, you know, body of work. So that's my that's my main complaint on it. But can I go to my main complaint, Trey? Because I think that's a good point between one and two. Well, actually, let me ask you this before I even go to the next thing. Where would you rank Lauren Hill? And maybe not on your own, but based on the list, do you think she's still worthy of being in the top five, top 10? You know,
Oh,
like
top five. I mean, I don't have an issue with her being number
okay.
two. I just think, I guess, to me, Thriller was just such, like, not even just the music, the sound of it, just the cultural impact it had. I just thought that that had to be a clear away number one. But I mean, I would have no issue putting her as number two.
Yeah, and I think the thing the Thriller has over Lauren Hill, although everyone can listen to the Lauren Hill album and enjoy it, everyone has heard either the song Thriller songs off of that album, from young to old to middle age to black, white, whoever, all over the world. And I think it had a bigger reach than maybe any album ever. Besides maybe like the Abbey Road with the Beatles, you could probably argue had that kind of reach too. But
I
yeah,
was going to say, I could see that one. I didn't want to say that, but I could see that. I could see that one win. And I wouldn't say too much.
but when I say the world, you know, nobody was really listening to Abbey Road in the Hood. You know, if I'm just being real, if I'm just
And
being real.
listen, man, I remember like when I was a kid, I remember seeing people making dubs of that Thriller video in Chinese, in
Yeah.
the Indian language. Like everybody was copying that video, making their own versions of it. So like again, the impact that that album had and that video had and the songs on it, like it was just it's ridiculous.
I think we can agree. Thriller should probably be number one. Miseducation, Lauryn Hill, probably in the top five. The biggest gripe, Trey, and this may be the biggest gripe in the entire list. And I've talked about him before. Blonde, Frank Ocean at number five all time. Stop it. We just got to stop. Like it. I already talked about how Frank Ocean is underrated. I said it before. I'll say it again, and I'm standing on that. That's one of the biggest things people like get on me about. Frank Ocean's overrated. I hate to tell you, I hate to tell people under 30. I'm under 30, and I'm telling you, Frank Ocean is overrated. He is an excellent artist, but this kind of cult following that he has for only dropping a couple albums and we never hear from him again, as if he like has some body of work like he's Prince or Beyonce. Like he's not. And I don't even know if Blonde is his best project. Like I'm a Channel Orange guy, if anything else. But if even if you say Blonde is the best, top five of all time, if I think Blonde, yeah, if should it be in the top 100, sure. Shouldn't even be in the top 50. I'm fine with that. Number 5 all time, Frank Ocean. And forget if even if you just remove the name, I get it. Just listen to the body of work. I know people that listen to this are probably all younger. It's not better than Songs in the Key of Life, Stevie Wonder. It's not better than Good Kid, Mad City. Hell, it's not even better than Lemonade with Beyonce. I mean, like, what are we doing here at this point? Like, I understand younger people are voting for this, and that's something that they want. But Frank Ocean's overrated, and like how much we're overrating him to put him number 5 all time behind. I mean, I'm not even talking about the Chronic and Illmatic and My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. I mean, we could there's albums on here that I think are not even debatable that are better than you know that are better than Blonde. But again, I could be biased. I'm more of a hip hop head, and that's R&B to me too. So I don't know. I mean, do you agree with me on that?
I agree with you, and I don't think you're biased. One thing I did notice about this album is that, and I'm happy about this for in this case, but it did have a lot of what I should say newer artists on it. Like Beyonce's Lemonade was number 10. Good Kid, Mad City with Kendrick Lamar was number 7. Like it did have a good amount of newer artists on there. And I'm not saying that they didn't deserve their position, but I'm not 100% sold, maybe on quite the numbering on it. Like I'll show
Yeah.
you, for example. Okay, Good Kid, Mad City, number 7.
Which, by the
Love
way,
the album. I
by
think
the
it's
way,
probably
Mike
Kendrick.
is I'm surprised the Paper Butterfly is not even on there. That's a different discussion for another day. But go ahead.
Okay, no, no, no. Great point. The Pimp a Butterfly is not even on there. That is a mistake. But then my thing is again, I think it kind of geared itself to newer artists because listen, Snoop Dogg Doggy Style that
84.
almost introduced America, like the wider version of America, to hip hop music, and that's number 84.
Oh, don't. There's one on the list since we're going back because I'll let's go back. The biggest one of the biggest travesties on this. This is when I knew I was done. Usher Confessions at 95. I'm done.
Oh, I saw
I'm
that.
done.
That didn't make any sense.
I'm done. I'm done. Listen, I'm about all being impartial and everything like that. If you ever listen to Usher, and especially Usher Confessions, and I think at any age, there is no way that is the 95th best album. And I get it. When you're putting a million albums and you're trying to get a list of 100, it's hard. It's a tough job to do. So, like, credit to people that actually put this together because they know they're going to be complaints. You're never going to satisfy everyone. But there's no way, if you're telling me this is 95 and you're telling me, you know, some of these albums above it are, you're saying that that's what it's better than. If you're ranking it, if it's lower, that means the other ones are better. There's no way you're telling me there's 95. Listen, I like SZA. I hate to call her out, but SZA SOS is not better than Confessions. Okay. The Strokes, Is This It, is not better. I'll fine. You can live with the Erica Badu, whatever, but like I don't even think Rihanna's Anti is better than Confessions. And I know people might be upset about that, but I don't think that's better.
And then I
And
got
that's a
some
great
questions.
album.
Like, what about this? I'm hoping I saying her name correctly. I need somebody to tell me that listen to the podcast. I need you like to text me or get an Instagram comment, something, so Nolan can let me know that you put a comment there. Like, I need is Billie Eilish. I guess that's how you say her name, Billie
Yeah, Billie
Eilish, however you
Eilish.
say her name. Yeah, her album's number 30. I mean, yeah, When We Fall Asleep, Where Do We Go? Like number 30. I don't know nothing about her. I haven't really listened to her. Is that accurate? Number 30 of all time? Like,
So
I'm just
listen,
curious.
I'm the wrong guy to ask about Billie Eilish. I couldn't even tell you. I don't even know if I could. She walked right by me. I can tell you what she looks like. But I know she has a big following. Here's my problem with that. If you want to put her in the top 100, that's fine. I just don't think enough time has passed with some of these artists that we can even say that. You know what I mean? Like more time's got to pass to know if it's that great. Yeah, it's been great. That album probably came out what 2, 3, 4 years ago. Like how can we know it's that much greater than some of these albums that are standing the test of time 20, 30 years down the line? You know what I'm saying? Like that's my problem. Like this album released in 2019. It's 2019. That's 5 years ago. Like, are we serious? Like that's better than that's better than 36 Chambers Wu Tang. Like that people are still rocking, and it's been 30 years. Like Illmatic, that's better than Illmatic. You know what I'm saying? Like, what are we doing? Like, what at some point, what are we doing? I mean, I don't want to start attacking the other genres because I don't have as much experience on those other genres. I'm mainly just thinking about the hip hop, like and the R&B. But when I see Usher Confessions Trey, that's a problem. That's 95. That's a problem. When I see Doggy Style at 84, that's a problem. I'm not even Eminem guy. Marshall Mathers LP at 80. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, well, at some point, I think, listen, I don't want to criticize the entire list. I think they got some things right. I know you're not the biggest Drake guy, but I think Take Care deserves to be on that list
Like
in
I
the
said,
top.
that's going to be his. If he has a great album, I'm not the biggest Drake guy, but if he has a great album, that's it. And I do want to say one thing too that you brought up Drake.
Well, you know how I feel. He has more than one great album, but in terms of the impact it might have had on music, yeah, I'll give him that. But go ahead.
Okay, I'm gonna come back to You know what? I'm gonna save my Drake comment for later. I want to say one other thing too.
Okay.
This list did not have the speaker box, the Love Below.
I was just gonna say. That's funny because I was good to say that earlier
Oh,
too, and I
really?
forgot.
I like
Yeah.
when I saw the list and had it, I ain't taking it serious no more. I'm like, okay, cool.
Listen, okay, here. So let me defend the people that did this, and I was reading up on it. It seems like they were trying to get some representation of a lot of artists, and like that's why there's very few artists that have multiple projects. Aquemini wasn't really super well received in the beginning. I know a lot of people thought it was weird and eclectic, and then it changed. Although, let's just say with the speaker box and Love Below, if we're being real, it's a double album. It's basically two solo projects put together. I can see why they didn't put that. Songs in the Key
But
of
that's
Life is also,
Outkast's best album. I know what you mean, but that's their best album.
yeah, but it's basically two individual albums. I mean, I can see why. But listen, Trey, you talking about representation. At least they got represented. Let me tell you who's not on this list, Trey. No Whitney Houston. No Whitney Houston
Oh
top
my God, I
100.
didn't even notice that.
My favorite female artist ever, Alicia Keys. No Alicia Keys top 100. I mean, I know everybody might not be a big fan of me. No, none. No Alicia Keys top 100. None. How about this? Look, I know. Oh, we all talking about hip hop and R&B. No Phil Collins. He should just get in there for the soundtrack for Tarzan alone, Trey. Just for that
Everybody know.
soundtrack.
Come on now.
He should be in there. No Diana Ross. And Trey, no Mariah Carey in here. I mean, listen, even if you got to put the damn Christmas album on there, it got to be on there. Come on now. No Mariah Carey on there, and then the last one. The last one, this is the biggest travesty to hip hop fans. There's absolutely, unequivocally, and I looked at this list multiple times to make sure I was correct. No Lil Wayne on here is inexcusable. It's
Man, you got
inexcusable.
three of the cards to pick from.
It is inexcusable that Lil Wayne is not on any list with top albums ever made. I don't care if it's a top 15, I don't care if it's top 50 or the top 100. Lil Wayne, none of the Carters made a top 100 all-time best albums. What are we doing? Like what are we doing here at this point? I mean, because at one point Lil Wayne was the biggest artist in the world. The world. Not hip hop, not the hip hop world, the world for a couple years there. And for him to not have an album on there, I mean, it doesn't make sense. I
But I
hate
mean,
it.
that's the same thing we said about Confessions. Like, okay, the speaker box, the Love Below, and Confessions. Those were the only albums you heard from like 2004 to 2005. Like that's it.
Yeah, I mean, listen,
Like that's it. And they don't even make the list. I mean, well, Confessions double. I mean,
yeah,
95. Come
Confessions
on.
made it. Yeah,
I mean,
Confessions
at,
said.
at that point, they didn't make the list in 95. Let's be honest.
I think the thing that was upsetting that a lot of people like Jermaine Dupri and stuff. The R&B representation was very scarce here. Like I said, I named the legends. Oh, no Luther Vandross. You know what I mean? Listen, like we can get into like there's a lot of artists here that had great projects that weren't mentioned. Now they did give Aretha Franklin, they got Beyonce, they got people on here. But
I mean, you had
it
to throw a
just
few on there.
who?
I said you had to throw a few of them on there.
Yeah, I mean you have to throw. I mean you can't do the whole thing and not throw them on there. But and again, it's all music. So I know I'm leaning a lot of hip hop and R&B, but I just feel like it's fine. If you don't have Alicia Keys, that's fine. I'm being biased with that. But if Mariah Carey's is not on here, Whitney Houston is not on here, like Lil Wayne is not on here, I don't think this has anything to do with hip hop and R&B. This is just
But
music.
no, we got Astro World on there. Come on now.
And that's what I'm saying. And look, we both love Astroworld. Like if we're being real, like that's a great album.
We both
Like
love it, but
yeah,
like not. I don't think it's top 100 album all the time. Like I can't bring myself to do that.
I'm not mad at it. I mean, first of all, I barely made it, so I'm not mad at it. If especially people younger voting for it, but I just can't see putting Pure Heroin by Lord or A Seat at the Table by Solange and not having Lil Wayne. Like this, like you know what I'm saying? That is where you lose me. You know what I mean? Like you just lose me at that point. You have SZA there and no Lil Wayne. Like you got Pac there. Pac is 62. That's a different discussion for a different day. That's really far down there, but okay. You got the Biggie in there. That's fine too. But I mean, some of this list, again, it's doing its job. It's got us to discuss it. Listen, Taylor Swift, 1989 is on here at 18.
I mean, I don't know nothing about her, so like I can't.
You know what I mean? Like,
I just can't say it's almost with the Billie Eilish thing. Like it just,
like Adele is above Marvin Gaye. Like what do we like? You know what I'm saying?
I
Like,
feel a way, but like again, I just know I haven't listened to him, so like it's just hard to. It's you know what I mean. It puts me in a weird spot, and like you know what, like I might not be fair because I just haven't listened to those artists. You know.
that's fair. That's fair. Like, and it makes me want to go back and listen to some of these, but I know I'm not gonna listen to all 100 because there's no way. But some of this stuff is just disappointing, and you already know you're going to be upset at some parts of the list, but again, the glaring omissions of the Lil Wayne and the Mariah Careys, like those are things I feel like are inexcusable and cannot happen. Like we literally cannot release an album and tell the history, because a part of these lists to me is the 100 best albums. If you drop this to an alien in Mars, this should tell the story of music. Like, does that make sense? Like, this should tell, like, if you know nothing about music, you listen to these 100 albums, you have got the grasp of what music is in the world. This is what this is telling you, and like spanning generations, spanning decades, right? You can't tell the story of music and Lil Wayne not be there. I'm sorry. Like, you just
And you
can't
know
tell.
what? Another issue is too, though, when I really kind of think about it,
Mhm.
they probably put a lot of these artists on here too that they want to keep good, how can I say, good rapport with. And I'm not saying that Lil Wayne is not still relevant, but like they might not be worried as much about Lil Wayne's rapport as they are with Beyonce or, Kendrick Lamar, naming the other artists.
Well, I mean, I just think that regardless of agendas being pushed, I just think that, I'm trying to think of the best way to put this. I think that there is not as much of an appreciation of certain things as it should. Like, I personally think, and I know we're talking about Lil Wayne a bunch, he doesn't get the credit as much as he really should for like how hip hop is today and how it's kind of changed. The same way we give the credits to Jay-Z's and stuff like that. Without Lil Wayne, all these artists that you can think of, let's just start from a basic level. Without Lil Wayne, none of your favorite artists now are not starting their name with Lil. Can we just go there? Like, there's no Lil Uzi, there's no Lil Yachty, right? Like, Lil Wayne made that popular. And then how he showed that he can be himself and make whatever music he want and be as vulgar as he want and still sell millions and millions and millions of records. Like, this guy changed hip hop for the better. I mean, he was controversial at the time, but he changed hip hop for the better. So I just don't think as a pioneer he gets his credit as much as the Jay-Z's and some of the other guys do. But he is the pioneer for, at least for our generation, Trey. Like, growing up, he is the pioneer for like what we see as hip hop now. And like, for him to not be on there, if anything else, just as a for him being a pioneer alone, I don't care which album you want to pick. Like you said, you can pick the Carter 2, 3, or 4, but put one of them on there. You know what I mean?
I mean, it's an incomplete list. And you know what's crazy about it too, though, when I
Mm.
really think about it? I think if we were to do the greatest hip hop album of all time, I'm not even sure Miseducation of Lauryn Hill is number one on that list.
Oh, I don't think it is. And that's so funny. That's funny that you say that, because that's a really, really interesting point. Because I think if you were just like, if you're just doing just hip hop heads, I think it'll still be in a top 10. I
Yeah,
think
yeah, man. It has a place in top 10, yeah.
but if you're just doing just hip hop, man, they're gonna put some Fight the Powers and Public Enemies in there. They're gonna put some,
Illmatic.
yeah, Illmatic. I mean, even Illmatic being that much further down than the Blueprint,
Oh, that ain't
like,
making any sense.
you know what like what that album did for hip hop and like using multiple producers, like, yeah, man, it's just, yeah, it's just difficult. But
Using
yeah,
multiple producers, like Illmatic changed the way all hip hop albums are.
period. Yeah, you
Yeah, like
know,
yeah. You don't have your albums sounding like they do now without having Illmatic.
yeah. Now I am glad they put My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, the Kanye, on there. I think that was appropriate for what it did. I mean, there's other Kanye albums. I thought Graduation should probably be a top 100 album, But if they're
I
going with
told you I
the,
can make an argument all through his first three albums.
yeah, college dropout, but I get it. I get it. It's all music. You don't want to put 3 albums for one guy. I mean, like, I get it. It's kind of asking a lot, but hey, like, some guys' music is greater than other people. So like that's just what this is. So,
Hey,
but
Kanye has his issues, but like the man made some great music.
he did, especially
But I
early
want to,
on.
hey, before we get off the music topic, I do want to say one thing. I've been noticing a lot online, like people been hating on Drake and whatever. And you know, I'm not the Drake's biggest fan. Like I like his
I was
music.
gonna
I do
say, you
listen
mean
to his
you? It
music.
was your online. It was your online. That was you.
No, 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 no. Hey, I've told you this plenty of times. When I look at my yearly wrap ups, normally Drake is like top five, a lot of times number one as far as music or
Yeah,
artists
yeah.
I've
I
listened
know the
to.
audacity of you to be talking about he only got one great album.
Okay. Anyway, I do want to say one thing. It seems like a lot of Kendrick supporters are taking this too far, where they think they're calling Drake washed and sorry and all other sorts of things. I just want to say
Oh
this one
man.
thing. You can feel how you want to feel about him. Maybe his personal life is a little bit murky. I mean, it was just allegations. I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and defend the man. But let's not act like he didn't make great music or he was on the top of the rap game for the last decade, decade and a half. That's all I wanted to say. I just wanted to get on my soapbox and say that.
I agree. And we talked about this with the beef. The people that didn't like Drake before the beef are not liking him now. I mean, it's the same people. Like this isn't going to be. This wasn't ever going to change. Like we almost feel like, and we did a whole podcast on the beef. We didn't get to release it. We had some issues there, but Drake is a controversial figure for those people, and that's fine. Those people are not going to like Drake, and that's just what it's going to be, and that was never going to change. Drake almost entered this beef with not a chance of even winning anyway. I think Kendrick won, but there was probably no really scenario where Drake was even going to win. So that just kind of goes without saying. But yeah, to me, Drake makes music, and maybe not as of today, but like if you go through his entire catalog, I think there he has music that is indefensible, that it's really good. Like meaning, like he's one of the few artists that like there's no way there's no songs of Drake that you don't like. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't matter if you're the biggest Drake hater. He's got something for you. You know what I mean? So that's just kind of what it is. And you can't even really say that about Kendrick. Like if we're being real, as great as Kendrick is, like if you're not a hip hop person, like if let's say a person is just not a hip hop person, like whatever, they could find one Drake song. Can they find one Kendrick song? Can they find one J. Cole song? Maybe not. Like I think that's the gift that Drake has over all of them, because he's floated in so many lanes. He gives you like a whole bunch of different flavors, so you can just pick with what you like. You know what I mean?
That's a great point. And the thing about Drake is, I think a lot of times we try to compare him, like what we used to call them back in the day, backpack rappers, where they just love the lyrics and they love the consciousness of the rap and
Yeah.
that sort of thing. Drake isn't a backpack rapper. Like he's not gonna really give you many conscious lyrics. He's not gonna be the most lyrical. He's not bad. I mean, he has a really good pen, but he's just not the greatest lyrical artist of all time. But what he does give you, he gives you club bangers. He gives you songs that you can listen to in the car. He will give you songs you can listen to with your girlfriend. Like he just gives you sort of music you can just vibe out with, and he does a really good job of doing that. So with that being said, yeah, everybody likes at least one Drake song. Like my mom has even listened to a Drake song before and like that on the radio. Like that's
Right.
just the kind of artist he is. So like you can't. It's almost not fair to compare him to Kendrick or Nas or one of these other artists.
Yeah, they're almost like completely different. It's almost like the in a way, it's kind of like the LeBron Jordan thing, right? Like like the LeBron Jordan thing is like we're just comparing accomplishments at this point, but they're two completely different basketball players. Like you know what I
Correct.
mean? Like they're two completely different basketball players. Like LeBron is closer to Magic than he is like Jordan. You know what I mean? Jordan's closer to Kobe, right? So like just when you watch in basketball, they're two completely different styles. That's why when somebody's like, who is the greatest of all time? You can have one or the other. And if you say, if I'm starting a franchise and I wanted to get a player, yeah, well, I'd probably pick LeBron if I know not a lot about the franchise. Yeah, but there may be a scenario where I have other things filled out and I need the Jordan. You know what I mean? So it just is kind of like a flavors of what you like, but LeBron would be the Drake in this scenario because no matter what I need, I could probably get it out of LeBron. You know what I mean? Where Jordan is like the Kendrick, like they're kind of doing one or two things at a very elite level. So there's a place for that too. So That's the best way I can put it. But yeah, hopefully we'll post this part of the podcast for people to listen to. Tell us what you feel about the top 100 list. But let's get to some basketball here. As we're recording this, the Celtics. We're not even talk about that series. Indiana, they got swept 4-0. Maybe we could talk about it a little bit at the end. But let's talk about Minnesota. Minnesota avoided elimination. Big game from Cat. Anthony Edwards played well as well, and they survived. So the series is 3-1, going back to Minnesota. Two questions. One, are you surprised that they did this? And two, how long do you think Minnesota can actually stretch this thing here?
No, so let me answer the first one. No, I'm not surprised because again, I had this series going seven. I told you I gave the edge to Dallas, but that's just because I thought they had the best player in the series, but that's about it. So the idea that Minnesota could win a game, yeah, I mean, of course I thought they could win a game. I'm surprised it took them this long to win a game. How far do I think they could take it? I wouldn't be surprised. So I kind of waffled because before yesterday, I was talking to one of my friends and I said, "Hey, I think Minnesota's going to win yesterday's game, the game that was played on on Tuesday night, sorry." And I said, "I think they're going to win game 6. No, game 5, I'm sorry, the game that's going to be played on Thursday." And I thought they were going to take it 6 and then lose. I'm kind of waffling now because after watching last night's game and realizing that Luke and Kyrie did not have a good game, I kind of feel like they're going to come back with a vengeance and maybe beat Minnesota by 20.
Hmm.
Yeah,
On their home court.
yeah, I'm kind of waffling between it being kind of like a near blowout or Minnesota being able to push this the 6. Put a gun in my head, I'm gonna say Minnesota pushes this to 6. But with that being said, if they are able to win Thursday night, hey, this becomes scary because I picked the Mavericks to win. But one thing I will say, based off of watching this series so far, Minnesota with the fouls and with their defensive sets and whatnot, and putting Rudy Gobert on the island to guard the wing players, they've done themselves no favors. But I think all in all, when you go through the roster, 1 through 10, I think Minnesota is the better team.
You think Minnesota's a better team than Dallas?
I wouldn't have said that before the series, but I think at this point, I think Minnesota's a better team. I think Dallas just has the better player, and then Kyrie, he's been able to step up more than Karl Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards to this point.
So
Luka's better, and then Kyrie just stepped up a little bit more than those two players I named.
So I'm gonna say what I've said the last time we did this podcast, and it's not a lot of times I get to get on here, and I like what I actually felt. A lot of it came true. I said I trusted Dallas's role players and those other guys more than I did Minnesota's. So I'm kind of the opposite with you, and that's basically what's been going on for the first 3.5 games of the series. Um, I don't trust anybody. Like when I look at the guys, who do I trust? Who do I trust in a big game in a big spot? Like when I need some things to get done on the court. I don't feel like I can trust anybody on Minnesota that's not named Anthony Edwards and like, maybe Naz Reid. Like I think Naz Reid's performed, but I can't even trust their second best player to show up consistently on a consistent basis. Their third best player, Rudy Gobert, is a complete offensive liability. He doesn't know he's an offensive liability. He keeps calling for the ball. We were talking about this before the podcast. I've never seen a big man call for the ball this many times when he knows he doesn't have any plan once he gets the ball. Their other big man, Karl Anthony Towns, just wants to shoot 3-pointers the entire time. And then when he attacks the basket, it looks like he literally has 2 left feet, Trey. Like it literally looks like he has 2 left feet. It doesn't make any sense.
He's hard to watch.
And then he's putting up the same damn floater runner. You know the one I'm talking about too. That little runner he shoot every time he goes to the basket. That finesse floater. I'm like, he is 7 foot tall, and I'm usually not that guy. I'm not the old head that's like, oh, you need to be back to the basket. I'm not that guy. But at a certain point, when I see you in the last years, you couldn't even post up Jamal Murray. I'm like, that's a problem. Like it looks uncomfortable for him to post up. And then like to him, he only wants to shoot threes, whether it's going in or not. And look, he's a great 3-point shooter. I'm not saying don't shoot them, but at a certain point, you got to expose them on the other end. And they have 2 big men that are big, but are unable to play big on the offensive end. And that's the problem. Like that's going to be a problem going forward. That's a problem in this series. So you can't really trust him on the offensive end. The only guy I can trust to consistently get a bucket is Naz Reid, because Naz Reid has decided, look, I'm going to shoot threes. I'm going to take my guy off the dribble and like I'm going to make some things happen. while these other two guys are twiddling their thumbs or not figuring out what's going on. With Dallas, they know who they are. It's going to be two guys that are going to be creating the majority of the offense. And how about Jaden Hardy, Trey, coming out of nowhere and giving them productive minutes? When Tim Hardaway Jr., there was an APB out for him. They don't know. I don't know what happened to his shot, but they can't find that. But Hardy's coming in there, giving them good minutes. Now they got the rotation of the three bigs now, because you got Kleber back, which for a lot of people that haven't watched the Mavericks, Kleber was one of their main bigs that they used to bring in off the bench or start sometimes. And the difference between Kleber and Gafford and Lively is he can shoot the three ball. So they can keep him in a lot of situations and really space the floor and make it even harder for them to guard, which is a discussion we're going to talk about a lot once they move on, predictably so, and play the Celtics, because that's going to be an issue. So I can trust Luka and Kyrie, but I can also, like, even if I can't trust PJ Washington to hit a shot or Derrick Jones to hit a shot all the time, I know what I'm going to get from them on the other end. They're not going to be a liability on defense. I know what I'm going to get from Lively and Gafford. So there's just things I know I'm going to get. And with Minnesota, and you tell me if I'm wrong, Trey, it feels like a lot of their possessions are just really hard. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just really hard for them to score sometimes. And like Ant has to be spectacular, and like Rudy Gobert has to get some things to go in, and Karl-Anthony Towns has to get a couple weird drives. Like, it never seems like it's pretty simple and pretty easy basketball. And I know it's the playoffs, I know it's the Western Conference Finals, but it feels like at some point they should figure some things out. And I think that one of the things that they may have figured out, hopefully they use it more, is when they play against Dallas and there's a smaller guy, Anthony Edwards, when they put him to the post, it let him, and I think Stan Van Gundy said on the broadcast, it let him see where the double teams are coming from, and it seemed like it was easier basketball. I don't know why took them 3 games to figure that out. I mean, this is an NBA coaching staff, but like that's something that I think they should have been doing before. But it just may be too little, too late.
Yeah, it might be a little bit, excuse me, too little, too late. With that being said, though, one thing Dallas is doing great is that they're crunching down the floor. And what I mean by that is they're kind of packing the paint, and as soon as Anthony Edwards gets the ball, it's almost like they're playing a box on one, but somebody's coming over the hedge a little bit. Like they're not allowing him to get clean driving lanes to the paint. And then unfortunately, Minnesota has not been able to punish them enough on the 3-point line. Like you said, Nas Reed is hitting it, but that's about it.
Yep.
Mike Conley, Karl-Anthony Towns, Rudy Gobert cannot shoot, so he's
And Mike Conley's
clogging up the
actually, I
paint as
forgot to mention
well.
him. I do trust Mike Conley because he's played pretty decent. I should have mentioned him too. Yeah.
I trust him, but at this stage, I just don't know if he's going to give you enough. But I trust him not to make simple mistakes, even though he missed some clutch free throws.
He did uncharacteristically miss some clutch freezes, but the one thing he's not doing, speaking of smart, he ain't taking them bad fouls like Karl-Anthony Towns is.
And I just think, again, to bring Karl-Anthony Towns back up, if we just have to, I think that we might be getting to the point where after the end of this series, we might have to revisit the discussion about whether or not he needs to be on the team next year. I think that that's something strongly that Minnesota might need to consider.
Okay, but here's the thing, like we always do with this. You may not have an alternative because you don't know who you're gonna get for him that's better. That's the only problem. Because like you're
I
not gonna get anybody that's better. If he didn't play his value up, it's only going down. Like to me, this is how I feel about Cat. There's a conundrum with Karl-Anthony Towns. And it's even his great games when he plays really well, it still feels uncomfortable. You know what I'm saying? Like even the games he plays well, the baskets don't seem easy. It just seems that the ones that were tough previously, they just happen to go in. Like it's not like last night when he played well, it was because he was just attacking the basket a million times and he like did all that. Yeah, he attacked the basket a couple times, but he really just attacked the basket a couple times, got himself going, and then he basically was just taking long shots. And this time he was making them. That's the only difference. So I never feel like when Karl-Anthony Towns has a great game, I never feel like a lot of the things that he's doing is like repeatable. You know what I mean?
No, I definitely get that, and I just think that's his style of play. Like he doesn't take, I guess, yeah, he just doesn't really take good shots. Like he makes difficult shots, and that's kind of crazy for him to be so talented to be saying that about him. But he takes tough 3-point shots, and then when he gets to the basket, again, he's doing the floater, like the finesse floater when he's 7 foot tall, and he's just making it more difficult for himself than it really needs to be.
And then, of course, like we talked about on the defensive end, his lack of awareness for like, hey, I'm the second best player on this team. I need to like make sure I'm staying on the floor and like taking the fouls, like you said before the pod, in the backcourt or just reaching for no reason. It's like every single game, and then it's like, what's funny? Anthony Edwards said it after the game at the press conference. and like about the dumb fouls. And if you probably remember, Trey, remember he said it earlier in the playoffs too. Like they were laughing about it. I'm like, at a certain point, it ain't funny no more. It's not funny. It's like legitimately not funny anymore. Like you're literally costing us games by you not being on the court. Like you keep like it's all joking now because Anthony Edwards is 22. Let this be next year and they're in a playoff run and you keep doing the same stupid fouls and Karl Anthony Towns, Trey, this is year 9. Year 9. Just to let people know, this is year 9, and these are still the same mistakes. So like this type of stuff is the problem with Karl Anthony Towns that I have an issue with. But can I say one thing though? Just switch gears real quick. I want to say something on Kyrie, Trey. I don't want to be this guy and rain on the parade because I am happy for Kyrie Irving and he's had a great year and he's rebuilt his let's say his image, with the Mavericks and they played well and he's on his way to a finals appearance and maybe even a championship. But you know what I keep seeing on the internet, Trey? And you probably seen the same thing. There's Kyrie Irving clips and then everybody in the comments is like, I'm glad people are not hating on Kyrie anymore. We always give him a bad rap. It was on us. Let me make something very clear for everybody. I'm happy for Kyrie Irving, but nobody was hating on Kyrie Irving before. What Kyrie did in the past was all justified and warranted stuff or warranted criticism. These are all self-inflicted things by Kyrie Irving. We don't have to go back down the list of the vaccine and the anti-Semitic comments and the not showing up for work. These are all things Kyrie Irving chose to do. And it wasn't just people being like, oh, we just don't understand him. Because you know what that reminds me of, Trey? That reminds me of the same people that defend Kanye West. And funny enough, you and I, we compared Kanye and Kyrie on this podcast. And I said, to be fair, he's not Kanye. Kanye just is way outlandish. I think Kyrie actually is a good-hearted dude and means well. I just think he gets in his own way. And I think he sometimes thinks he's the smartest guy in the room and he thinks he's like, at a certain point it got a little too far, and I think he's ran himself back in, and that's what maturity will do to you. But we're not gonna do is just act like, oh, we're just hating on him, he's just opinionated. Because those people, they say the same thing about Kanye. They're like, oh, Kanye's just opinionated. Y'all just don't like Kanye. He's opinionated. No. Kanye is not just opinionated. He's saying dumb stuff and offensive things, and Kyrie Irving was saying dumb and offensive things. This isn't just he was just opinionated and we were hating. I just wanted to make that clear. Trey, go ahead.
No, I mean, I can't say anything that you said any better. I mean, Kyrie, he brought a lot of his issues upon himself. I guess he can say he did have an injury concern, but I mean, that wasn't even the big reason he was getting the hate. He was getting the hate because again, he was just putting out, I would just say ridiculous statements from time to time, and he was just wasn't being the best teammate, whether it been in Boston or with the Nets. So again, I'm happy to see Kyrie playing well. He is one of my favorite players just to watch, like just personally watch him play.
He
Like
should
his
be
game is
anybody's
just so
favorite
beautiful
one.
to watch.
He's everybody's one of everybody's favorite player to watch. If who doesn't want to watch Kyrie Irving play basketball? That was the problem. No one's hating on Kyrie, by the way. There was never any word hate. It's just criticism. That's it. It's just criticism.
Yeah, just criticism. Like his game is aesthetically pleasing. Like there's no debate about that. But again, he was just bringing some off the court issues upon himself, and that caused people to look at him a little bit differently.
Exactly. But listen, we're gonna have a lot of plenty of time to talk about Kyrie and stuff because we think they're gonna go to the finals. Final predictions. You think they're probably finishing it in 6? The Mavericks.
Yeah. I say six. I say six. I come down from a game. Again, my original prediction was seven, but I say six.
Yeah, I think the same thing. I think Minnesota is gonna like use that crowd's energy and hopefully win a game on their home court, and then probably get themselves closed down to Game 6. But I'll tell you what, if they, I would love to see them win Game 5 and then come back in Game 6, and then it's the fourth quarter, and they got a chance to make it interesting. You know what I'm saying? Like that would be really really cool, even if they don't. Because I think ultimately they can't come back from 3-0 because you would just run out of gas expending everything you got to get there. Even if you did get all the way to a Game 7, I think you would run out of gas. But hey, crazy things have happened in the
I
NBA.
mean,
I know.
we almost saw it last year now.
Yeah. It can happen. Like, yeah, I'm a Heat fan. We almost got like up 3-0 and almost lost the whole thing. So like we figured at some point, I know it's never happened in NBA history, but we figured at some point it's going to happen, and maybe this could be the year. But we'll see how it goes from there. But we're going to be tuning in as well, and hopefully it goes well. It didn't go well for my Heat trade. Quick update. My Panthers hockey team. We're in Game 5 tomorrow night, 2-2. So we might have a chance to go to the Stanley Cup finals. I told you this last year, Trey. you got to at least watch at least one hockey game in the playoffs. Hockey playoffs are legit. Hockey playoffs are legit. Maybe at least watch the Stanley Cup. Maybe watch a game or so if you got free
You
time.
did say this. I haven't got the chance to watch it yet. It's just not something I think about, but you have told me this before.
Yeah. Yeah, like if it, I guess this is for anybody. You don't have to watch hockey all year. I don't even watch hockey all year. I mean, I watch like the Panthers or whatever every once in a while, but like the playoffs in hockey are like intense. It's physical. It's like actually exciting. So like get a chance to watch it, tune into that, especially since there's gonna be less and less basketball. So that's something to look forward to as well. But anyway, I want to thank everybody so much for joining us once again. Of course, like we always say, we're on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, all that good stuff. Check us out. We're going to have a finals preview for you guys coming up soon, whenever the finals do wrap up. So keep an eye out for that. We'll drop some polls and stuff for you guys as well, how you feel about this series, the Western Conference Finals, preview, of course, of the finals, and then we'll get to some of the Apple Music stuff as well for you too, just to get your thoughts. But of course, on the way out, I will swing it to Trey.
Again, like always, thank you so much for joining us today. We really do appreciate it. And until next time, peace.